Welcome to this edition of Quick Hits. I'm Paul Strand. Today we're talking with Julia Dean, the religion editor of the Washington Times. She's just written this exciting new book, Days of Fire and Glory. And Julia, we're standing here at Christ Church in Washington, D.C. What did this have to do with the charismatic renewal which you're writing about in this book?
Well, Christ Church was the site of Take and Give, which is called TAG, which was one of the biggest meetings in Washington, D.C. in the 1970s. 2,000 people packed the place on Tuesday nights. I was one of those people. I was in college at the time, and it was just amazing to be here and to see the worship, the prophecies. I mean, it was like the center in Washington.
You were part of a community in Houston that had a huge role in the charismatic movement, right?
Yes, I was in, well, I lived in actually a Christian community in Portland, Oregon, and then I moved to Houston, and when I was with the Houston Chronicle, I was a member of Church of the Redeemer. It was a major Episcopal church that was like one of the top centers of the renewal, along with a few other churches. They were the ones that helped the Catholics get into the charismatic movement.
Redeemer was an Episcopalian church. Is that how the Episcopalian denomination became involved in the charismatic movement?
Yes, there were several churches. Redeemer was one of the top ones. Its leader, Graham Polkingham, got baptized in the Spirit in 1964 at the hands of David Wilkerson. He went back down to Houston. The whole church turned into a major renewal center. They were the ones that put together the Jesus movement, the people living in communities. They pioneered many things that the renewal became known for.
Now, you yourself belong to a charismatic community. Many Christians today are interested in the idea of Christian community, but are there dangers there?
Well, there were, because there was a lot of authoritarianism. That was what my master's degree was on, in fact. That was how authoritarianism tends to creep into the charismatic movement. It's not like anybody planned it, but because of people following the teachings of Watchman Nee and certain other people, in that things got rather oppressive very fast. It seemed like control entered the picture, and then things kind of started going downwards. And it was just that a lot of sexual sin happened. I don't know why the charismatics got so afflicted with it, but unfortunately, it's true.
So what brought Redeemer down specifically? I mean, that's a major part of your investigation for this book. What brought it down?
Well, a couple things. The sexual sin of its major leader, Graham Polkingham, didn't help at all. He was a gay man, as it turned out. He was hitting on some of his counselees. And I think that was just, spiritually, that really affected his church, because a lot of stuff was happening in his church that we didn't understand why this went on. And then also, too, there was a lot of control, especially in the Catholic charismatic renewal. And there was the money part wasn't too bad, but in certain other parts of the charismatic Pentecostal movement, there was a real problem with people misusing funds. So it was like the sex, money, and power, that troika. Just people fell into just the stuff that you could have predicted would happen.
The charismatic renewal is going gangbusters many places overseas. Why do you think it's stalled here in America in so many places?
I think people haven't dealt with the root causes of the sin. Again, we have Ted Haggard, who just, 2 years ago, was another gay man who never told anybody what was going on. He was not accountable, which was the problem with Graham Polkingham, who was also not accountable, even though he was in the Episcopal Church. So you've got all these root problems. I sometimes think God is withholding revival until they're dealt with.
Julia, how does your personal life fit into all this? I mean, why did you write the book, and how's it affected you?
Way back in the 1970s, I really thought the Christian community was the future of Christianity. I lived in a community for 2 years in Portland, Oregon, and then when I happened to get a job with the Houston Chronicle, I was extremely interested in what was going on there. They had 400 people in the community. They were like the top of the country. Everybody went to Houston to see how they did community, because it was a great way to minister to the poor. So I was a member of Redeemer, and then I went to Pittsburgh to get a master's degree, and that's where I met Graham Polkingham, the man who this book is about, and who is the perfect example of how the renewal rose and how it fell, and as he did die in disgrace, unfortunately, in 1993.
Well, thank you, Julia. Fascinating interview. We've been speaking with Julia Dean, the religion editor at the Washington Times. She's just written Days of Fire and Glory, the Rise and Fall of a Charismatic Community. I'm Paul Strand. Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Quick Hits. Please stay tuned to the news on the CBN News Channel.